Hello, welcome back to our channel, dear fans. So let me ask you this. In a marriage, what is more cruel, telling the truth and letting the person you love suffer right now? Or staying silent and letting them live with regret for the rest of their life? If you want to find out, come explore what will happen to Naomi and Jacob's marriage. Naomi has lived with her nerves stretched tight for so long that she can no longer tell what is normal and what is a warning sign. Ever since she received test results suggesting a BRCA risk, something inside her split in two, like a room with two doors that are always left half closed, on one side. The life she tries to keep intact through discipline and a practiced smile, on the other, a smoldering fear that never screams, yet clings to every breath she takes. She still goes to work, still organizes her family life, still forces herself to appear composed in front of the careless questions of people who love her. But in every quiet pause, Naomi hears an invisible counting, as if her own body is waiting for the moment it will betray her. That fear isn't only about cancer, it's about losing control, losing her role, losing her value inside a family where everyone is already bracing under battles of their own. She hates pity. She hates the idea of becoming the next problem everyone has to solve. And deeper than that, Naomi hates herself for even thinking this way, as if illness were a moral failure, a stain that damages the marriage vows she once believed could withstand anything. But how can anything withstand what is happening when the husband she loves is drifting farther and farther into a different world, a world where dangerous assignments are called promotions? Where silence is called professionalism, where for the family becomes the excuse that quietly pushes the family behind someone's back forever. Jacob isn't a bad man. That's what hurts Naomi most. He is the kind of man who makes the pain sharper, because he has legitimate reasons for every absence, and that legitimacy robs her of the ability to be purely angry. All she can do is swallow it, convince herself that if she endures just a little longer, everything will be fine, that speaking up now would only distract Jacob, only weaken him at the exact moment he is standing in the middle of a mission where one wrong step could cost him his life, his honor, his future. Naomi has used love like a gag over her own mouth, and the result is a feeling that is both pride and disgust. Pride because she is strong. Disgust because she knows that sometimes strong is simply another way to postpone collapse. The day Naomi collapsed, fate chose the most brutal timing possible. Jacob wasn't home. He had left early, carrying that look people get when they are both hardened and hurried, always racing against time. Naomi had meant to tell him. She had stood at the threshold of the kitchen, watching his back, and the words had almost reached her lips that she needed him to stay. That she had just received a call to confirm her follow-up appointment, that she had been feeling strange pains and enduring sleepless nights fueled by fear. But Jacob cut in with a familiar reminder, something that sounded like tenderness yet functioned like an unconscious command. Don't worry, everything will be fine. I'll be home early. And Naomi fell silent again, as if silence were the right thing she owed to his life. When the door closed, the house became frighteningly empty. Naomi tried to laugh at herself, tried to believe it was only stress, only lack of sleep, only a body worn down by a fear called BRCA that she still hadn't dared to name out loud. Then her body did what it always does when a person trusts willpower too much, it shut off. Dizziness surged through her like a black tide. Naomi grabbed the edge of the table. The room spun. She dropped to the floor in a moment that felt both fast and slow, as if time wanted to stretch the fear and punish her for delaying. No one heard, no one caught her. And in that second, a poisonous thought cut through Naomi's mind. If I die here, Jacob will find out last, just like with everything else. When Naomi woke up in the hospital, the pain was no longer in her head or chest. It was somewhere else, somewhere difficult to name. The feeling of being left behind. The tests rolled forward like a cold assembly line. Blood work, heart tracing, scans questions, answers, those standard family history questions that made Naomi feel like she was being turned into a file rather than treated as a human being. She wanted Jacob there not because she needed him to make it up to her, but because she needed him to see the consequences of how easily he always believed that everything would be fine, without ever checking whether it truly was. Yet when Jacob rushed in, eyes red with panic and a face that seemed to have aged in just a few hours, Naomi found herself trapped in the same familiar contradiction, wanting to fold into him and wanting to push him away. Because Jacob's presence now did not erase his absence then, it only highlighted it. He didn't bring calm reassurance into the hospital room, he brought a storm of guilt, desperately searching for somewhere to land. He looked at Naomi like something that had almost slipped from his grasp, and that look softened her and enraged her at the same time, because she knew that the moment she recovered, Jacob would return to the old rhythm, the old secrets, the old reasons. The true blow came when the doctor said the thing that didn't just worry Jacob, it shattered him. It wasn't a final diagnosis. It was the way the doctor fitted scattered pieces into a frightening picture, that the collapse might be exhaustion and malnutrition. But it could also be an early sign of something silently progressing, that with a BRCA risk, small changes in the body cannot be dismissed. That some symptoms Naomi has experienced for a long time should have been reported sooner. Then the simplest question from the doctor struck like a knife. How long has Naomi been postponing this? Jacob heard the word postponing like a sentence being read aloud. He turned to Naomi, not with anger, but with the stare of someone who has just discovered a betrayal that made no noise at all. Naomi had hidden it. Yet this betrayal was nothing like the betrayals of desire or ambition. It was the betrayal of survival instinct, the betrayal of marriage vows in the most twisted form. Jacob had believed he was the protector of his family. Now he realized he hadn't even known how much the family had already been collapsing. Naomi watched Jacob break, and it only tangled her feelings further. Part of her wanted to scream that she had tried to tell him, that she had opened her mouth, that the truth had been right behind her teeth but blocked by the life he dragged behind him. Another part of her hated herself for feeling like she was blaming him, because Naomi knew she had choices too. She chose silence. She chose just a little longer. She chose to control fate by keeping secrets, as if refusing to name fear would keep fear from becoming real. Naomi began to wonder, did I delay because I love him, or because I wanted to keep authority over my own body without seeing pity in Jacob's eyes? Was she afraid of Jacob worrying, or afraid of Jacob seeing her as a burden? And the cruelest question of all, if Jacob were home more often, would she have had the courage to speak sooner? Or even if Jacob were here, would Naomi still have stayed silent because her pride had been welded to the image of the strong wife for too long? Jacob, meanwhile, was being crushed by a kind of regret with no exit door. He didn't only regret not being home when Naomi collapsed. He regretted the entire chain of days leading up to it, the times Naomi was tired and quiet, the moments he dropped hints like small test balloons, and he always cut her off with cheap reassurances. He heard her without listening. He looked without seeing. He treated Naomi's silence as proof that she was fine, when in reality it was proof that she was slowly disappearing from herself. And in a horrifying flash, Jacob realized that his promotion, his dangerous mission, his sense of power, his belief that he was doing the right thing, had accidentally written an unspoken rule into their home. Naomi was not allowed to distract him. Jacob never spoke that rule aloud, but he lived it, and Naomi learned to read it in every rushed glance, every half-hearted touch, every time he left in the middle of a conversation that hadn't even finished. There was no third person in this betrayal. It was the betrayal of time and priorities, the kind of betrayal people only recognize after disaster has already arrived. Their tragedy isn't ultimately about whether Naomi is sick. The tragedy is that even before the final results, their marriage is already ill with everything that was never said. Naomi thinks about family, about the way bad news spreads like wildfire, about the way people will start looking at her with different eyes. She wants comfort and fears being treated like something fragile. Jacob is the opposite. He wants to fix everything instantly, to compensate with action, to remain at the hospital like a brand new vow, yet the harder he tries, the more he feels like someone paying for sin in the wrong currency. Because Naomi doesn't need Jacob for 3 days of panic. Naomi needed Jacob months ago, in the moments when she wanted to speak, and he never made space for it. Jacob understands that, and that understanding makes him crumble further. No act today can trade back the absence of yesterday. At night, as Naomi stares at the hospital ceiling and listens to the steady pulse of machines, she realizes her postponement wasn't only love, it was a form of controlling fate. She convinced herself that if she chose the right moment to speak, she would control the story. But life doesn't respect plans, especially plans built on fear. Naomi controlled nothing. She only delayed the truth until it kicked the door down on its own. Jacob, sitting alone in the hallway, is tortured by the question nobody can answer. If he had been home more, would Naomi have told him? He wants to believe yes, because that belief gives him a path toward forgiving himself. But deep down, he fears the answer is no, because that would mean the fracture has grown so deep that Naomi has learned to carry everything alone. And their marriage has become a place where she no longer believes she has the right to be weak. The next morning, the doctor recommends more intensive tests, speaks about long-term monitoring, even hints at preventive intervention if the risk is confirmed clearly. Those medical words shove Naomi into another moral battle. Protecting her body with extreme decisions means accepting that her life will change forever. For Jacob, every medical choice Naomi faces becomes an indictment of the life he has been living. If Naomi must undergo surgery, must face treatment, must confront the terror of losing parts of herself that society unfairly equates with femininity, what will Jacob do? Will he truly stay, or only stay until the emergency ends? That question chokes him, because he no longer dares to answer with vows. He has promised too much, and his career has swallowed too many promises. Naomi collapsed while Jacob was away, and that will remain a wound that does not heal cleanly, no matter what the final results show. If it was only exhaustion fueled by BRCA fear, then they still must face the truth that fear alone was powerful enough to knock Naomi to the ground. If it was the first sign of a silent illness, then Naomi's silence and Jacob's blindness become a guilt they both carry. Naomi hid it to protect them, but also to protect herself from pity. Jacob was absent to protect the family, yet the cost was that the family learned how to survive without him. And in the place where tragedy likes to live, the question that remains is no longer whether Naomi is sick, but whether they can survive the truth that they have betrayed each other through things that looked harmless. One postponement, one failure to listen, one choice to place ambition above the fragile, unspoken needs of the person they love. If Naomi wakes up from all of this and still chooses silence, it won't be love anymore. It will be a cold declaration that she would rather control fate alone than hand it to someone who is always too busy to notice her slowly falling.